Flying just got very unfriendly, so much for those friendly skies. This as the shutdown already has air traffic controllers calling out sick. If you have an upcoming trip to the airport, you're going to want to stick around to hear this. Plus, Attorney General Pam Bondi facing a grilling on Capitol Hill, but firing right back. She's taking no prisoners.
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You admitted you lied to be elected a U.S. senator. You lied. How dare you? I'm a career prosecutor. Don't you ever challenge my integrity.
Wow, more from that heated hearing coming up. But first, 2 years ago today, October 7th, the Hamas massacre of innocent Israelis, babies, children, parents, and pets, 1,200 Israelis slaughtered. Hamas didn't just stop there. They also took 250 hostages. Some of those hostages are still being held today. I regrettably saw in real time Hamas commit these atrocities. That's because the Hamas terrorists wore GoPro video cameras on their heads so that they could film their vicious acts. The video is 47 minutes of horror. There simply are no words to describe these absolutely sick monsters. I also walked the Bari kibbutz. What I saw is also unforgettable there. Evidence of what those innocent families went through in their last minutes of their lives. Some were burned to death. Every place I looked, there was evidence of death, including dry blood on the walls of homes. I also toured the Nova Music Festival site, where concert-goers were kidnapped, raped, and murdered. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is at the Nova Music Festival site. Zach?
Well, Greta, this is one of those moments where, as you're with everyone that is at this festival site, it's been such a painful day. You'll see someone come to these signs here that have the victims, their pictures, and they'll light a candle at one picture, they'll move on to another, and light a candle at another photograph of all of the friends, all of the people that they knew that were killed at this music festival that ran through the night. Some 300 young people, and as you look at those pictures again of the victims, a lot of their birthdays start with a 2. 2000, 2001, 2002, young people were here, 300 of them slaughtered by Hamas. We have put together only a fraction of what took place that day in the story you're about to see, and I do warn you that the content of this story is graphic and very violent. It's not even the worst things that we've seen ourselves, as you mentioned, but it is something that if this is not images that you're prepared to see, I would advise that you do not watch the next few minutes of this story. Here it is.
October 7th, 2023, a bright Saturday morning, a Jewish holiday. Thousands of young Israelis had danced through the night at the Nova Music Festival, while thousands of militant Islamic terrorists, Hamas, began their siege at dawn. The Hamas attack was launched by air, sea, and land. Hundreds of rockets launched to cover the first wave of the assault. Israel's defenses at the border wall dismantled in minutes. The infamous dividing line between Israelis and Palestinians breached in over 100 locations. Millions across the world will come to reject the scenes you're about to see as propaganda, denying one of the most thoroughly documented massacres of our time. The terrorists wore cameras themselves, recording their atrocities firsthand, while border communities and their security cameras captured the first wave of the Hamas assault. Almost immediately, Hamas began taking hostages, some 251 souls that day. Others were executed, some were burned beyond recognition. Evidence of rape and sexual mutilation widespread. Hamas claims it never happened, that it violates their Islamic principles. At the Nova Music Festival site, more than 300 would be killed, the flat desert terrain offering little shelter. Those that did seek refuge in the roadside bomb shelters designed to protect against rocket attacks were now trapped by gangs of roaming terrorists. Israel's military response still slow and uncoordinated. And as some Hamas men managed to return to Gaza, they were celebrated in the streets. By late morning, the Israeli Air Force helped to slow the waves of Hamas still pouring out of Gaza, while some armed Israelis managed to pick off the invaders outside their homes. Israeli forces would slowly regain control throughout the afternoon, still unaware that 1,195 people had been killed, including 38 children. The sun would set on that day in October. 2 years of war and counting would follow.
Zach Anders, thank you. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman joins me. Good evening, sir. And I don't know what's going to happen with these negotiations, but I'll tell you one thing. We're never going to hear, and neither is Israel, from Hamas. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, one thing that you're not going to see is a lot of these protesters that have been doing that for the last 2 years. They're not protesting to demand Hamas to accept that peace deal. And I mean, I've watched that video. I've seen that video and those imagery. I've actually visited all those sites and saw that, and they filmed it. They filmed that, and that kind of evil and that kind of cruelty, the things they've done, children, they've raped, women, executed civilians like that. You really just have to burn that kind of evil off the face of the earth. Now, it's like, who does those kind of things, and let alone films those, and they're proud of it and for those things. So you can't negotiate with it, and that's why it's entirely appropriate to destroy Hamas and kill all of the leadership that were responsible for it, as they've done.
I think, I've seen the same video. I've walked the same place. So you have a different time. And I think that's why you and I are in so much agreement. We're 100% in agreement on this, because I think any decent human being seeing what we saw and watching that tape, I do not see how anyone could possibly have a different view on this.
No, I mean, that should be mandatory to watch that. If you're going to protest and for pro-Hamas or these kind of things, watch that video, and you really can take in and see exactly who you are actually advocating and the kinds of people that they really are. I've actually walked through these, and I had the honor of meeting Noah, that iconic clip of she being pulled away from Nova, and so those are the true heroes. I don't know how all these hostages are able to survive. They have been underground now for 2 years, tortured, beaten, and even forced to dig their own graves. And a lot of the media has normalized this kinds of thing. I'll never understand how we all can't just be very clear. We're going to stand firmly with Israel's side, and all of the trauma in Gaza could have ended at any time for Hamas to surrender, send all of them home, and there'd be an opportunity for real peace. But they refuse to do that, because it is nothing more than a death cult. And now it's just the point. That's why you have to destroy it.
Well, the thing is that everyone, the people are protesting, say they're some of them is, although a lot of them are not, but for Palestinians. And I just don't think I think a lot of people have forgotten things. For instance, I did a little research today, because UNRWA, which is the organization the United States has been funding through the United Nations since the late 40s, is that at least 12 UNRWA staff had direct involvement in the October 7th attacks. That's what we financed to try to help feed these people who were living in squalor. There was at least there was another hostage held nearly 50 days in the attic of an UNRWA teacher's home, who also had a father of 10. And the family was getting fed while this hostage was being starved. There was another one who was held. She was detained in multiple UNRWA facilities in Gaza. She was shot, denied medical care, and it goes on and on. I mean, there were, Hamas may have been, the starters on this, but there were a lot of sympathizers of Palestinians, and a lot of them were actually helping.
Oh, of course. I mean, and now you brought up the UN. The UN has just become incredibly anti-Israel throughout all this. It's just crazy. Absolutely. And now look at a lot of the media outlets as well too, and the way they describe these kind of circumstances. And now again, I can't imagine why we could support this and not just call this exactly what this is. And now. Here we are. We have the first opportunity for real peace and this comprehensive peace plan. And now, as a Democrat, I absolutely support that and actually celebrate that, because here we could actually have a peace. I mean, whether that comes from the current president, just because it's a different party, I'm going to follow Israel. And now this is the first opportunity for real peace and to send all those poor souls home after being held underground for 2 years.
And of course, the poor souls are coming home. Those are the ones from October 7th. Is in order to get them home, Israel's got to release hundreds and hundreds of Palestinian who've been doing unthinkable things. They've had civil trials for murder. One killed 5 people. I mean, they are releasing very terrible people to get those people home.
Yeah, it's disgusting that Israel is forced to do that. I mean, literally, they are proud, and they killed innocent civilians, but I do hope Israel never forgets, and I hope they take them out at some point as they continue to. So I don't think they ever forget, and they ever forgive what they've done against innocent civilians.
Well, I hope that nobody forgets, and I hope some people even learn about what happened before they hit the streets protesting. Senator John Fetterman, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's a very sad day, but I'm very proud to remain firmly on the side of Israel.
Well, you know why I call you up? I mean, you know why I want you on the show is because, I know that because you've seen it, and you have a very powerful position and a very strong voice. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me here.
Coming up, on the day that marks 2 years since Hamas' horrific slaughter of innocents, pro-Palestinian protests erupt worldwide. That when the record continues.
Just before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead. Charlie wrote this in the foreword for the new book, Pagan Threat, by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said that Pagan Threat could save America, and that you must read and share this book. A #1 Amazon bestseller, Pagan Threat is available everywhere. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer and save $30. Go online today and read Charlie's final words.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
Chubb Insurance is totally woke. CEO Evan Greenberg called President Trump's America First movement harmful on multiple levels. He said stopping men from using women's bathrooms is a threat to democracy. Chubb funds trans indoctrination of kids and declared DEI the foundation of its culture. Even funded an organization that defended a cop killer. Politics ahead of American values. Chubb puts woke into action.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Two years ago today, Hamas slaughtered innocents in Israel babies in front of their parents, parents in front of their children. To mark this horrible day in history, hundreds of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv at Hostage Square and also gathered in Jerusalem outside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence. Both groups demanded the return of the remaining hostages being held in Gaza. According to the Israeli Prime Minister's office, 48 hostages are believed to remain in Gaza, 20 are believed to be alive, 28 are believed to be deceased, murdered by Hamas. Also today, pro-Palestinian protesters gathered in different parts of the world. These protesters are demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Protests are expected to begin in New York City later this evening. And also today, United States Attorney General Pam Bondi came loaded for bear at a hearing in the Senate. She testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Attorney General faced questions related to the Epstein files, drone strikes on suspected drug cartels, the Trump administration's push to use the military in U.S. cities, the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, and a few other topics. Here are a few highlights from Bondi's testimony.
They are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And
Can you tell me why my phone records, when I'm the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, were sought by the Jack Smith agents? Why did they ask to know who I called and what I was doing from January 4th to the 7th? Can you tell me that?
No, Senator, and there were 8 senators in total.
Brian Ballard, longtime backer and head of the law firm where you worked, was instrumental in lobbying the Justice Department to drop that lawsuit. It was dismissed, so it's not subject to a court review. What conversations did you have with Mr. Ballard?
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You
you.
admitted you
I am
lied
not
to be
accusing you
elected
of
a U.S. senator.
impropriety.
You
I'm asking
lied.
you
How
about
dare you? I'm a
conversations
career prosecutor.
with Mr.
Don't you
Ballard,
ever challenge my integrity.
This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your entire career.
You can attack me later, and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day today.
Canned attacks on you?
This is supposed to be...
No one needs a canned attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair. I'm trying to speak.
Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School and author of The Preventive State, Professor Alan Dershowitz joins me. Boy, she ripped off the skin of Senator Durbin, Senator Blumenthal, and Senator Schiff. I mean, I've never seen a beating like that.
It's about time that somebody stood up to these hacks in the Senate who are bullies and cut people off and say, I only have 10 minutes to answer my question. No court would ever allow the kind of questioning that the senators ask everybody. And she's fighting back for all of us. I've testified. I know what it feels like. And it really took courage on her part for her to fight back. And I'm really glad she did. And she won the day.
But she certainly took no prisoners. And look, in particular to me is Senator Schiff, because when he was in the House, he was chair of the House Intel Committee. I can't tell you how many of his press conferences I covered where he'd come out and sort of say, well, he'd be sort of telling the American people, I know something about President Trump, it's all intel, we got to keep it quiet. But he went out there and used the position as chairman of House Intel to suggest that he really had the goods on President Trump's first term doing really terrible things, and it turned out to be nothing.
Well, it's left-wing McCarthyism. We're seeing it throughout the Democratic Party, with a few exceptions, like the great Senator Fetterman, who you interviewed, who really is the one person who represents principle, represents honesty, and really nonpartisan approaches in the Democratic Party. I wish his colleagues would learn from him, but they don't. They are moving toward the extreme left, and the only thing they care about is trying to hurt President Trump. And they're not succeeding in persuading the American people that they're up to a leadership role, which is why after me being a Democrat for 60 or more years, I am now going to campaign very hard for the Republicans to maintain control of the House and the Senate. Not because I love the Republican agenda, it's because I'm totally frightened if the Democrats were to gain control of either House, who they would appoint as chair people, who they would put in the position of inquisitors, and how they would deny rights to people, and how they would introduce a kind of McCarthyism that we haven't seen since I was a college student in the 1950s.
Well, you know, just to get back to Senator Fetterman for a second, he was obviously elected statewide in Pennsylvania, and I oftentimes hear him say that he represents the entire state of Pennsylvania, not just those who voted for him, and I think that's actually pretty true from his remarks. All right, there are a couple areas that Attorney General Bondi didn't exactly provide an answer for. One is the Epstein files. The other is prosecution of James Comey, but of course, you know, that's an ongoing criminal investigation, so she shouldn't talk about that. But what about the discussion about the Epstein files and the rationale for sending National Guard to other cities? Although she tore into, she hit pretty hard Senator Durbin about Chicago.
Well, let's start with the Epstein files. Everything should be released right now. Much of the material is being suppressed. You know what's being suppressed? Information that proves that some of the women lied and made up stories and were made by their lawyers to make fake claims. You can't release only the accusations without also releasing material that shows, for example, there's one woman named Sarah Ransom, accused Bill Clinton, accused so many people, and then she admitted she lied about the whole thing. She made up the story. There's a lot of that going around. And so if you're going to release all the material, and it all should be released, it should also include material that's currently sealed. I know that there is material that's sealed, and I know that it's there to protect these alleged victims who lied.
Well, you can't get some of the material. Some of the material they can't release without court order, which is, for instance, the grand jury testimony under 6E. So there's some stuff that she just has no authority to do.
The grand jury testimony is not the important testimony. It's the deposition testimony in many of these civil lawsuits that the judges are protecting these alleged victims who lied. And I know personally of testimony of victims who were themselves guilty of very serious crimes, and the judges are protecting them. So go to court, get these judges to release these depositions and release all the testimony. What we can't have is simply partial releases where the accusations are made, but the information that shows that the accusers are lying or their lawyers are lying for them, that can't be suppressed. So let it all be out there, and I would like to see every single bit, every single word of it, no suppression whatsoever. That's the only answer.
Transparency, that's my favorite word. Alan Dershowitz, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up, another visitor at the White House. Who is it? Why is he there? That one, the record continues.
As Israel suffers attacks on 7 different fronts, it's her poor and elderly who are barely making it through each day.
The tears are from the pain of the life that she's lived. She's a survivor of Auschwitz. The years that they would just beat her, years that she didn't have food and felt hungry.
She paid a horrible price to come home from Ethiopia. She lost in that journey her 6-year-old son. A couple of weeks later, she lost her family. She is a wonderful woman, and she is very poor.
I pray that we answer these cries, and our answer is love.
With a gift of only $25, you'll deliver a life-saving food box into the hands of an elderly Jew in need.
She's saying people have a heart. There are good people today.
Call, scan, or go online now, and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews will rush your food box today.
Hallelujah. This is a holy moment. What you're doing is not simply being kind. You are prophetically stepping into the scriptures and being part of their redemption and our own.
When you call right now, Your gift will be doubled to help save lives. Call now.
In a world where Israel is under attack, Christians can help fulfill biblical prophecies through practical support and genuine friendship.
Mucho para mí.
For everything you are doing, thank you. It's perfect.
This is what a simple food box does.
You can bring joy, hope, and love to someone praying for your help today. So please call, scan, or go online now.
Hi, TV Genie.
What do you want? I wish I could find my shows easier.
I wish my primetime TV was automatically recorded.
I wish I could record more.
Well, I can't do any of those things. So here, I swapped your outfits.
Switch to Dish. Get voice control, automatic primetime recording, and more recording power.
You're welcome.
Switching from DirecTV satellite to Dish can save you over $300 in your first year.
We should get Dish.
Prices keep climbing. Groceries, gas, everything.
I know, even with a new administration, fixing policies, keeping the economy in line will take time.
I'm so glad we signed up for Noble Gold Investments Value Lock program.
We tied our savings to gold. It's an asset that keeps pace with inflation. When prices go up, so does gold.
So when we need our cash, the value's still there.
Secure your savings with Noble Gold's Value Lock. Call 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
My allergic itch was a growing problem for me and my human. Then the vet gave me Apoquel. It works at the source and starts relieving itch in as fast as 4 hours.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Big or little itch, ask for Apoquel.
Apoquel.
He's back. Earlier today, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made his second visit to the White House since President Trump began his second term. Today's meeting focused on trade. White House correspondent Mike Carter is at the White House. Mike?
Yeah, it's easy to forget, Greta, that it is day 7 of the federal government shutdown. Today, President Trump meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and that subject definitely came up. President Trump saying today that some federal furloughed workers may not receive back pay for the time they've spent not working during this shutdown.
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
Well, the Trump administration previously teased mass firings as a result of the government shutdown. Trump telling reporters today that permanent government firings could be announced in the next 4 to 5 days. Meanwhile, under Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's leadership, President Trump has doubled Canada's tariffs on things like steel and aluminum, going from 25% to 50%. Softwood lumber tariffs on Canada have more than doubled as well, 14% a few months ago. Now they stand at 35%. And non-U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement goods have risen from 25% to 35%. Yesterday, the president announcing beginning November 1st, all medium and heavy-duty trucks coming into the U.S. from other countries will be tariffed at a rate of 25%. So a lot to discuss between Trump and Mark Carney today. Well, Carney's arrival here at the White House, of course, comes on the second anniversary of Hamas's October 7th attacks, with the U.S. delegation continuing indirect talks with Israel and Hamas today in Egypt. The president speaking to the issue at the start of today's bilateral meeting.
We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations, and so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
And Greta, President Trump concluding his day today by meeting with Eden Alexander, an American-Israeli citizen believed to be the last known American held hostage by Hamas. Greta?
Mike Carter at the White House, thank you. A judge's beach house went up in flames, and now South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, otherwise known as SLED, has released a statement. The statement details SLED's preliminary investigation into the fire that destroyed South Carolina Circuit Judge Diane Goodstein's home. Judge Goodstein's home was located on Edisto Island in South Carolina. The statement reads in part, quote, "At this time, there's no evidence to indicate the fire was intentionally set. SLED agents have preliminarily found there is no evidence to support a pre-fire explosion," end quote. Goodstein's husband, a former Democrat state senator, their son, and another person who has not been named were in the house at the time of the fire. All three escaped the blaze by using an upstairs window to jump from a balcony, and the three were then rescued from a marsh area and rushed to the hospital. The judge's husband had to be airlifted due to the extent of his injuries. Judge Goodstein was not hurt. When the fire broke out, she was walking their dog. The investigation is ongoing. Coming up, not something you want to hear. You might want to sit down for this. An air traffic control tower goes unmanned for hours. That when the record continues.
You hear the same voices.
Donald Trump knows that's a lie.
From the same people.
Donald Trump is less lucid.
Saying the same thing.
Insults, invective, and outright lies.
And you say, enough! I'm Chris Salcedo, and I'll tell you the real news. You don't believe me? Just tune in.
Fruits and vegetables are meant to stay whole. At Balance of Nature, we freeze dry them, locking in their color, taste, smell, and thousands of phytonutrients, so you get it all. Get 40% off by using discount code FALLPRIME.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
We're down here in Wimberley, Texas, to build a smart home for Dustin Weber.
We want to welcome the Weber family to Wimberley.
Yesterday was just amazing.
The thought that has been put into these smart homes, they've thought of everything that will make his life better.
This home allows me the freedom to experience my children, taking them to bed. This home allows me the freedom to not slip and fall in the bathroom. It is a life-changing experience.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
October 7th, 1,200 killed in Israel, 46 Americans, 250 taken hostage.
What happened here is a large-scale invasion. They entered Israel to kill anyone that they can.
Just shooting everyone like in a duck range.
We come back to the car, and there's two baby seats with hundreds of bullets.
And then she texted me, "I love you, you're everything." And she stopped answering.
In my kibbutz, we had a baby 9 months old that they murdered.
Hamas murdered my sister. When I buried her, I buried a part of myself.
I think Hamas would do it again. Raping women, beheading babies, killing innocent people.
As long as Hamas is over there, we're not gonna have peace no matter what we're gonna do.
Let's stand for freedom, not terror.
This is a nightmare of the worst proportions. The government shutdown is causing staffing shortages at several airports, including now Chicago O'Hare. And yesterday, for nearly 6 hours at Burbank Airport, an air traffic control tower was completely unstaffed. No staff in the tunnel. Pretty horrible, right? Well, the staffing crisis caused several flight delays and cancellations. Luckily, as you know, no crashes because the tower was unstaffed. But the Burbank Airport air traffic was then handled by an FAA facility in San Diego, but that facility is 140 miles from Burbank. In a post on X, California Governor Gavin Newsom said, quote, "Thanks, real Donald Trump. Burbank Airport has 0 air traffic controllers from 4:15 p.m. to 10 p.m. today because of your government shutdown." Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy called Governor Newsom, quote, "unbelievable for blaming President Trump." Thankfully, today, flight operations at Burbank Airport have returned to normal. Both TSA and FAA workers are expected to be working despite the shutdown. They are considered essential workers, meaning they are supposed to work without pay during a shutdown. They will receive back pay once the shutdown ends and funding is restored. Still, that does not stop people from calling out sick. Now, as I mentioned earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi was on the Hill, loaded for bear. She described a weaponization of the Justice Department that went after President Trump. This after disturbing news about former special counsel Jack Smith, who was looking into the January 6th Capitol riot and who to indict. On Monday, we learned the FBI, while working on cases for special counsel Jack Smith, tracked the private communications and phone calls of nearly a dozen Republican senators. That's spying. One of those senators, Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin, said this.
It should shock every American of what the Biden administration has done. By the way, this is the first time I was targeted by the FBI. Under the Obama administration, the same thing happened to both Senator Grassley and I. As part of the Foreign Influence Task Force, we were giving a briefing to try and convince us that the Hunter Biden laptop was no big deal. Basically, they're trying to throw us off the track. So this is major corruption.
Ohio Republican and Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, is here, along with former White House Chief of Staff and Congressman Mark Meadows. Nice to see both of you, gentlemen.
Good to be with you.
First to you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was bad when the Aruba police had an arrest warrant for me years ago. But, I mean, what in the world is the FBI doing to these Republican senators?
Well, this is all part of this Jack Smith investigation, but I think it's important to remember sort of the big picture. If they can do this to, 9 United States senators and members of Congress, imagine what they can do to regular citizens. I always think that's an important thing. The second thing, a takeaway I always have is, the only thing we get wrong when we start looking into these things is it's always worse than we thought. So here they are looking at the phone calls, who senators are calling. And I think Mark, we were talking backstage, I think Mark made a good point. They're going after these guys because they're calling the president. I mean, all of us were talking to the president back when all this stuff was going on. And then when you couple all this with what we uncovered a week and a half ago, where they were also spying on Scott Perry when they went and took his phone, imaged his phone, all because this was Jack Smith looking for any way to get President Trump. To me, that's the big this is how committed they were to this lawfare and to undermining the guy that we, made president of the United States.
Well, I'll dig a little deeper. With these signed warrants, do you have any idea? I mean, if they're signed warrants by the judge, who is the judge that's signing these?
Well, whoever the judge was, if it was my understanding now is that it was an administrative warrant. And
so no
signed.
judge. So
no judge. But why is the FBI and DOJ doing administrative warrants? You can understand that with the IRS or the SEC, but you don't even have a position. These senators wouldn't even have a position to quash, the subpoena. And so, if there was a judge involved, they should be impeached immediately. I mean, it's amazing. But to Jim's point, I think it's worse than what we know. What we know so far came from a whistleblower and a little bit of information. I think it's
is the
much
FBI
deeper.
denying it? The FBI, the current administration, is Director Patel denying it?
No, that's what we got the information.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, here's one of the problems that I have is that Special Counsel Jack Smith. He would be the one in charge of this, right? Why in the world was he chosen by Merrick Garland, the former Attorney General? He is the one who destroyed Governor McDonald's career by going after him in corruption, and he was convicted. McDonald was convicted, but I went to the Supreme Court 8-0 because one justice recused herself. 8-0 against Smith. He's got a history of destroying people.
He's also the guy way back in the Lois Lerner targeting by the IRS of conservative groups. He's also the guy who was looking for ways to prosecute the conservative groups, saying somehow they mishandled their application when they applied for tax-exempt status. So I think that's the very reason why Merrick Garland picked him, because of what you described, what he did to the governor, the former governor, what he did to conservatives in the whole IRS targeting. That's the reason they picked him. Now, you think about this. One point I want to make is they had already went and got Scott Perry's phone before Jack Smith came along. But understand the sequence. They're doing that, going to a sitting member of Congress, taking his phone. They took photos of Scott Perry, where he was working. They followed him, all kinds of surveillance, all kinds of spying they did. Took his phone, imaged his phone. Then Jack Smith gets named prosecutor. But what's he do first of all? Raise President Trump's home. Then he does this stuff to the senators. So that's sort of the sequence. I think that timeline's important. This is how committed they were to going after
All right, well,
the president.
I want to talk about someone who he swims in the same pool with, and that's Jim Comey, who is now under indictment, going to be arraigned tomorrow. And I think if we dig a little bit deeper into Jim Comey, I've never liked the fact that he leaked those documents after he was fired. I don't like that at all, and I think that reflects on his possible intent for other things. But he was the U.S. attorney who would prosecute one of the worst prosecutions in our history, and that was the arrest, indictment, and conviction of Martha Stewart. She was investigated for insider trading, never charged with insider trading. Instead, when the FBI went out and talked to her, they said that she lied to them, and they got her for false statements, and then ruined her career.
Yeah, and what you see here is that many of the Democrats are guilty of what they've been accusing Donald Trump of for forever. I mean, because they keep talking about, even today, they're talking about how the DOJ has been weaponized. Well, they look no further than the last 4 years under Joe Biden and Merrick Garland in terms of how they weaponized the law enforcement agencies that we should respect. And listen, there are a lot of great public servants in the FBI and DOJ. But when you allow this
But they're not calling out the other ones. So you know what? The other thing, too, is you should call out.
And to your point, is so many of the bad actors, they burrow in. And they're even there under this administration, not just at the FBI and DOJ, but there are people that are at FDA that right now celebrated the fact that Donald Trump lost in 2020. And yet they're working for this administration. You've got to get to the bottom of it.
Tomorrow's Jim Comey's arraignment, that's a tough case for the prosecution to win. It really is a tough case. Yeah. If he is acquitted, there's a good chance he's acquitted. It's a big standard beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe he is innocent. It's going to look like vengeance against him. It's going to look like lawfare against the Democrats. How do you answer that?
Well, I point to the big picture. Think about the last, 10 weeks, we've learned that, that it looks like Comey and his chief of staff, Rubicki, were leaking classified information. We know from a whistleblower, one of these people come forward that Mark was talking about, who came forward and said that Adam Schiff was encouraging the leaking of information. We know from another whistleblower who came to Director Tulsi Gabbard and said that they changed the intelligence community assessment clear back in 2016, 2017, when this whole lawfare started against President Trump. So all that's come out in the last 10 weeks, and you have whistleblowers coming forward and explaining that to the country how it took place. So I think you look at it in that context. If he gets acquitted, he gets acquitted. But I think it's important that at least he's being held to account for I believe he did make false statements to the United States Congress.
What's the recourse for the people who have a warrant, who go after those members of the Senate and everybody else's records, phone records? Just like, is there a crime? Or, I mean...
Well, they violated the Fourth Amendment. I mean, if
they have a warrant, they're carrying out the order of the...
Here's the interesting thing was when you look at this administrative warrant, you've got to look deeper. And I hope the outrage that we're feeling today doesn't just die down tomorrow. Because what happens is as Jim was talking about, it's not just about these senators, a dozen or so senators. It's about the average man.
But see, that's why I'm glad it's the senators, because there will be an outrage about the senators because of all the other people get it every day in a day, unless you get a big, poster child for it.
Maybe one other fact I think is important because I look at these things the same thing. What they did to Scott Perry the year before, and then what they did to these senators. When they went to Scott Perry, they also had 7 people show up to get his phone, who'd been following 7 people. They could have called him up. His lawyers would have said, you can have the phone. But 7 people show up. One of the people there was part of the Inspector General at the Justice Department. The entity that's supposed to oversee and make sure the Justice Department behaves appropriately,
Crazy.
they're in on the deal too. That's how bad it was.
Chairman Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, thank you both very much.
Great to be with you.
Thank you.
Coming up, besides being life-threatening, war has been very expensive until maybe now. War may have gotten really cheap. I'll explain when the record continues.
I am Mr. H, owner of Immuno 150, possibly the most complete and best nutritional supplement in the world, bar none. Now, it has propelled me to 91 years of age, and my wife Shirley to 82. Both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, doing everything we did many years ago. All because of Immuno 150, and it can do the very same thing for you. Try it for 90 days so you can experience the difference it can make in your life. Nothing on the market can compete with the way we blend 70 plant-derived colloidal minerals with 80 very carefully selected nutrients. You'll be surprised if you take the recommended dose of Immuno 150 for 3 months. Place your order now so that you can be with us many years from now. Thank you and God bless.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonex Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonex, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. Nonex is made in the USA and so effective, it's money-back guaranteed. Lift out the fungus with Nonex. For clear, healthy-looking nails, use Nonex Fungal Nail Clarifying Gel. Buy Nonex at Amazon, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart.
Get unlimited satellite internet when you switch to Viasat. Connect, browse, and explore. From coastline to countryside, Main Street to your street. Connect wherever you live. No data caps, no contracts. Just a fast, reliable connection installed by pros. Unlimited data, endless possibilities. Visit getviasat.com or call 877-VIASAT-7 to sign up today. That's getviasat.com or 877-VIASAT-7. Viasat, internet without limits.
On Friday, we showed you the video from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The U.S. Navy had launched a strike on suspected drug smuggling boats off the coast of Venezuela. This is the fourth such strike against what Hegseth calls narco-terrorists. It's part of the Trump administration's fight against cartels and drug smugglers. Technology is changing the way wars are fought. One company hopes to revolutionize the battlefield by land, air, and sea, making it very cheap. Earlier, I spoke with CEO of Scientific Systems, Kunal Mehra. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, Greta. It's a pleasure to be on.
Okay, tell me about your drones.
So my company, Scientific Systems, we're a leading provider of what we call affordable mass. And affordable mass is really low-cost, swarms of low-cost drones in mass numbers that we can use to overwhelm our adversaries. And we do this in every domain, literally from the seafloor to space. And this capability is all entirely enabled by low-cost hardware that's given military capability through advanced software that's enabled by artificial intelligence and autonomy. So what you're seeing over here on this...
Yeah, go ahead.
What you're seeing over here in this video is actually a picture of our boat, Venom, being manufactured by our partners, Tideman Marine. And Venom is a really innovative, low-cost, unmanned surface vessel that's produced out of this very tough, rigid plastic called high-density polyethylene. And we pair that with a 300-horsepower diesel engine, and this system is ready to go. We can deploy it in mass numbers for the U.S. military and our allies globally. And you can see it in operations right over here on the water.
Well, I take it one of the huge advantages is that missiles are pretty expensive. How much is one of those for the military? Can you give me some sort of price idea?
Yeah, so it obviously depends on the configuration and the specific systems on, but this is a very low-cost system. It's, less than 1% of the cost of a regular Navy warship. I mean, certainly well under $1 million, and in some cases, just a few $100,000.
How fast can you produce them?
We could produce several hundred of these boats in a year. Our partners already got the production capacity in place, and they've got multiple manufacturing facilities right here in the U.S.
And I take it they're reusable. Well, I mean, that whatever they do, or are they not reusable?
No, they're absolutely reusable. I mean, as a matter of fact, these boats just use regular diesel fuel, which the Navy loves because it's not very flammable, and they keep it on most of their warships at sea. But these systems can be deployed, recovered, and just reused over and over again. And because of the plastic hull that we're using, they require really minimal maintenance. So in military operations where you're operating in very austere environments, this material is perfect. It requires very little maintenance.
I suspect, and I don't know what the intended use is by anybody, but I suspect that if you were trying to get drug cartels that are running drugs to the United States, that this would be a safer way to address that and a cheaper way to address it than to have the Coast Guard go up into a boat and question what they're doing, assuming that we verify that they're up to no good. But I assume that it's safer and cheaper.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first problem is, as you know, so many of the drugs infecting our country come from South America. And so they come through the Caribbean basin. It's just an absolutely enormous area. How do you even just find these boats? That alone is a huge problem. And, our military doesn't have enough warships, enough boats. The Coast Guard doesn't have enough boats or enough helicopters to search these broad areas for these, narco traffickers transiting drugs across the oceans. So first and foremost, venom can just be used in large numbers to, patrol huge areas along our coastline, identify these, suspicious assets, and then enable the military to have direct, video right on these vessels, and then eventually do something about it if they want to. So venom can be armed. It could be used to interdict these drug boats directly, or it could be used to, call for a Coast Guard manned asset to come in and take action directly.
One last question: how big a boat can these drones take on?
Well, that just depends on what kind of payload we put on these. So if you put an explosive on, it could take on a very large boat. But really, Venom today is a 9-meter boat. We can produce this in smaller or larger hulls, depending on what the requirement is from the Navy. But what I should really tout here is it's really a collaborative capability. So Venom's powered by our innovative software that we call collaborative mission autonomy. And so it's not just a one specific Venom that is used to offset the adversary. We can coordinate 8 to 10 of these vessels to come and take on an enemy boat, at multiple angles to really overwhelm the adversary's defenses. And so when you think of it from that perspective, it really becomes this huge enabling capability. And nobody's demonstrated the power of this better than the Ukrainians and how they've been able to use these AI-powered drones to push back the Russian Navy.
Yes, indeed, Ukraine has sure used a lot of drones. Kunal Mehra, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Coming up, new footage of Chicago's worst fugitive. Hint, he's really slow. That when the record continues.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Shopping pictures.
Whoa. The unexpected can happen to any of us. That's why SelectQuote makes it easy to get the life insurance coverage you need to protect your family for less than $1 a day.
SelectQuote found me a $500,000 policy for only $16 a month.
We could help you save more than 50% on life insurance.
The buy one, get one free sale is happening right now at Cabinets to Go. Come in today and choose from a huge selection of popular color and style combinations that are sure to wow. And here's the best part. Our expert designers will help you get started with a free 3D design. It's never been easier or more affordable to bring your dream kitchen to life. Visit CabinetsToGo.com to find a store near you and come in today for big savings during our buy one, get one free sale. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at GetTrumpWatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Jesus Christ came to take the muck out of you. Let me send you this free book, The Everlasting Gospel of Christ. This is absolutely free. We simply want you to know Jesus Christ.
How does the world's most trusted dog expert keep his own dog so healthy?
Hi, I am Cesar Milan. In my 20 years rehabilitating dogs, I've seen too many struggle with health problems that no amount of training could fix. Then I discovered it wasn't the dog, it was their food. Fortunately, I found veterinarian Dr. Marty's anti-kibble breakthrough.
Nature's Blend is packed with whole foods that are freeze-dried, locking in nutrients.
I saw remarkable improvements in my dogs within weeks.
Try Dr. Marty risk-free for 90 days. Plus, get a free gift when you call or visit drmartypets.com/Caesar.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
Good news, Flip Flop has been found again. Flip Flop is the name of this tortoise. He is, believe it or not, an escape artist. Twice he escaped his owner's backyard in Arlington Heights, Illinois. The first time he escaped was just a few hours, and neighbors spotted him and called the police. Officers found him chomping on a peach tree. He was returned, and then Flip Flop did it again. He escaped again. This time he was on the lam for 2 full days. His owners posted signs around the neighborhood. A landscaper saw him, saw the signs, and brought Flip Flop home. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening. Stay with Newsmax.